true believers. Drew here from Horror, Sci-Fi, and Beyond, and we got episode 3 of the MCU Lookback with Phase 2, Part 1. And today we're going to review Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World, and Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
So I think that they missed an opportunity by not calling the Iron Man movies Iron Man, like Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. It's the only mini franchise in this larger franchise that doesn't have fancy titles.
Yeah, like a subtitle.
So,
yeah.
Because they were I guess because they rushed in the second one, and they were we'll just call it 2. We'll just call it number 2. No one will know.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
so I guess they're we stuck with it now.
The numerical thing, but they have volume 1.
Yeah, they have volume because that's his tapes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Iron Man, it just has numbers.
Yeah.
Right. It's little thought was put into naming those movies as possible.
But anyways, before we get to that, I just got one quick housekeeping thing to do. And it's gonna be the announcement of the next episode of Horror, Sci-Fi, and Beyond, and that is gonna be the 90th anniversary of one of the greatest special effects spectacles of all time. That's gonna be Marion C. Cooper's King Kong.
Oh boy!
Yeah, because it turned 90 this year.
90
years. 33?
That's
Is it, no,
crazy.
23?
Yeah,
no,
33. Yeah.
Wow, shoot.
So anyways, on to the MCU Phase 2 Part 1. And let's start out with Iron Man 3. And the plot synopsis, according to IMDb, is when Tony Stark's world is torn apart by the formidable terrorist called the Mandarin, he starts an odyssey of rebuilding and retribution. So that is the plot synopsis for Iron Man 3. And before we get to the deep dive, what are some of your quick thoughts about Iron Man 3?
I think this is okay. It's the second best Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the Iron Man solo franchise goes, but it's pretty good. Obviously, you got Shane Black taking over the helm on this one, and he does some very Shane Black kind of things that I enjoy. Other people apparently do not enjoy. We can get into that in a minute, but yeah.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I think the biggest thing about this is that it's better than Iron Man 2, which is an improvement all around. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's got some problems. I think it's mostly got problems with its main villain, but there's some twists and turns that I genuinely enjoy as well, and a lot of people hate. I agree with you, Jackson.
Yeah.
We'll get to the terrorists not in the room. My quick thoughts is I was initially disappointed by this movie because I wanted it to be a pretty dark movie. I actually wanted Pepper Potts to die in this movie, believe it or not.
Oh boy.
Anyways, let's get into a bit of the deep dive. I love how it opens on the New Year's Eve party. I thought that was a lot of fun. And then you get the callback to Jensen, because
yes, love me some Jensen.
Yeah, that was cool to see that actor come back. And then that's when you get introduced to Rebecca Hall's character, which is pretty awesome. I like seeing an old fling of Tony Stark as a main character, not just a throwaway.
Yeah.
I thought that was a lot of fun. I love seeing 80s James Hetfield from Metallica in this movie with Aldrich Killian.
Oh.
Yeah.
He does kind of look like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that dude
with worse teeth.
Oh yeah.
But I also will say, the beginning of this movie starts differently than any of the other Iron Man movies, is that Tony is narrating for us, which is kind of strange at first.
That's Shane Black right there.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of enjoy it for the most part. I remember watching it the first time. I was like, I don't like this. Why is he talking so much? But
because Tony Stark is an egomaniac.
I guess so. But yeah, it was just a voiceover in general. I didn't like it first. But this time around, it did bother me as bad for some reason. I don't know.
Well, they don't stick with it the whole movie. It's just kind of at the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to the New Year's Eve scene, since this is New Year's of 1999, there's actually a Y2K joke. in there when
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
blows
I
up.
noticed that. That doesn't age this movie very well.
No. And this movie was like should have known better.
Yeah, it
This
was
was like 13 years
long,
after New
long
Year. Yeah.
after. But I
Mm.
guess New Year's Eve 1999, they would have been thinking about Y2K, especially if
It's
you're a
true.
tech giant like Tony
Right.
Stark.
Yeah.
So, hey kids, look up Y2K and why it was the stupidest thing in the world.
Oh, I
Here's a
got
joke for
I
your
got
parents.
But anyway, we can't talk about this movie without talking about Ben Kingsley's amazing performance as the Mandarin.
Yeah.
Like, he was like I remember just even before I saw the movie, just watching the trailers over and over again. I used to quote this guy all the time, like the "You'll never see me coming."
Such a weird, yeah, it's such a weird dialect that he chose for that.
Yeah, and I wonder.
I can't pinpoint where it comes from.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it is like it makes you wonder like whose idea was that? Was it Ben Kingsley's idea? Was it Shane Black's idea? Take him
I have
off
no idea.
I don't know either. It probably was Marvel to not make him overly. We tend to villainize Middle Eastern countries in
Mhm.
movies,
Uh-huh.
and so it was probably handed down that he can't have some sort of Arabic accent. I almost 100% guarantee Marvel told him that.
Right.
But
Yeah, so he has
um,
basically the accent from nowhere.
nowhere, yeah, that is nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Such a wild exit. I do like Tony dealing with PTSD from
Mhm.
New York in this movie. Which
Mhm.
I think was a nice like character choice for him because this is where I really felt the movies connecting thematically. Then it was like
Uh-huh.
events that were from previous movies are now affecting the characters post movies
Yes.
from that. This is when it
Mhm.
really became apparent to me.
Right.
Which I thought was a nice touch. I thought it like really helps because they did Tony Stark being a jerk and not being a jerk anymore. And then they did it again in the second one, so they needed something
Yeah.
else for him to do.
Right.
And
And
this
I
makes
think
perfect sense.
you always have to have some level of snarkiness with Tony Stark.
Sure.
That's
Sure.
Sure. But in this one they kind of I don't know what the word is. They kind of do away with it because he is snarky, but they give him like a kid sidekick
Right,
that he
right.
gets to be like kind of warm and
Mean to,
fatherly to at the
but
same
also
time.
mean to sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit,
Dude calls
but
dude calls this kid the P word. And he said, "So what? Your old man left you? No reason to be word about it."
Yeah.
yeah, but at the same time, like he this is kind of the precursor to his relationship with Spider-Man
Hmm.
hmm
because
Yeah. Yeah.
he meets this kid and has kind of a kinship with him because they both
hmm
love to tinker with
Oh yeah.
machines and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, and then going back
And
to him
yeah.
being mean to this kid, this isn't like almost like Biff Tannen level of like asshole or of asshole. It's one thing to be like an asshole to like someone your own age or somebody similar to your age. It's a
Sure.
entirely different ballpark to be an asshole to a kid or like an old man. With like Biff Tannen is that like to both kinds of people, and that's his future too.
It was competent attitude. I mean, more power to Tony Stark.
Yeah.
You gotta shut that stuff down.
Yeah, and then I like the part when like when this kid like said something about them being connected because they're like like to tinker with stuff, and
hmm
Mhm.
then like at the end of their interactions when Harley says he's cold, and then Tony Stark says yeah I knew. Do you want to know why I knew? Because we're connected. It's
hmm
like like
The
good
kid's doing a lot
God.
of the kid's doing a lot of weird stuff with his face too sometimes. Like they'll cut to him and he's just like, eh? Just like looking at it like they went with that take. I'm like, what is this kid doing?
Yeah, the only
Well,
thing
there's also the whole thing about does the kid know who Tony Stark is
oh
or
yeah I was
not?
about to ask that.
Because
Yeah,
yeah,
because he
when they
calls himself the
first
mechanic.
meet, like he acts like he doesn't know who Tony Stark is, but then he
Right,
shows Tony Stark the newspaper where Tony Stark is apparently dead,
Mm.
and
right.
then he still asks Tony his name. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a
That
little.
felt like they probably shot that scene a couple times with a couple different takes on it,
Yeah.
And I didn't find
Didn't know which one to go with, so they went with both.
Yep.
and I didn't find the kid annoying at all. Like, I mean, he was annoying, but like he was like a cute annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's a
was fine.
really good sidekick. He's
Yeah.
Short Round from Indiana
Yeah.
Jones, you know.
And right. And just when you think he's getting annoying, he's kind of gone from the movie. Like he's only really in that middle
Right.
section when he goes to Tennessee. I will say the middles. I do really love the middle section of this movie because Tony essentially like loses his suit,
Mhm.
and you
Yeah.
get so many great like moments where he's having to like figure things out on his own
Mhm.
without all of his toys, or like building his own toys, which is a great sequence when he finally goes to Florida and meets the Mandarin, where he's got all those like Christmas tree bombs and
Mhm.
everything. It's good.
Yeah.
It's really good stuff. Electric glove.
Yeah.
I'm here for all that. I would have watched the entire movie with Tony without his suit. Then he gets it back in like third act.
So, what do you guys think about Guy Pearce as Aldous Killian in this movie?
Well, I have said this on this channel before. I think that Hollywood has flagrantly misused Guy Pearce for years, decades.
Years and years. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like he could have been like a great like leading man hero type, and they keep making him villains. But to his credit, he's good at playing villains. Like I enjoy his performance in this movie. He's another one of those where like the script isn't really doing him any favors, but he comes in and just commits and owns to it. So yeah, he's very menacing. I do enjoy his transformation from being like super nerd at the beginning of the movie to being like this like weird European type villain where he doesn't wear socks with his suit, that sort of thing.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like Tony Stark not like being handed things. It's one of those weird like being there
Right.
kind of ticks.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
agree. Like, I could always watch Guy Pearce. I especially love the movie Ravenous that no one ever talks about, but it's great.
Oh, Ravenous, yeah.
Guy Pearce is great. He's infinitely watchable in this movie, and honestly, really carries it in parts. But you're right,
Yeah.
man. Script is not doing him any favors. Basically, his only motivation is that Tony Stark was mean to me once, and now I made myself a magma man.
So
Like,
so many villains in this franchise have that same motivation.
oh yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just like,
They all
come on,
hate
man.
Tony Stark.
Yeah,
Just, I
haven't heard
hate
that
him.
one
I want to
before.
kill him.
Jim
Right?
Carrey's Riddler syndrome, The Incredibles.
Yeah.
Right. Oh sure.
Uh-huh.
It's that same like and it's kind of tired. It's like basically the super dork now becomes hot and now he's a villain. This way it makes a little more sense here because he had like scoliosis before. He was like he had a cane and was crumpled over, and now
Yeah.
he's like he's got that hot magma flowing through him, and he can do anything.
Yeah, and I definitely think Pierce is definitely the right balance of like charming but creepy. Like he had like a little crooked
Yeah.
smile. It looks like, or like his smile is kind of off.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was good. And then we can't talk about this movie without talking about like the big twist when we find out that the Mandarin is not actually the Mandarin. He's like a British actor. He's like addicted to drugs.
Yes.
Chef's kiss. I loved it.
Trevor Slattery. Yeah.
I love the part when
Just
he gets
cracking
caught.
beers the whole time. So good.
I love the part when he gets caught for the first time and he's like, bloody hell, bloody hell.
It's good. I love all this stuff. A lot of people hated that reveal. Like they really wanted to see the Mandarin as like a big bad villain. I loved it. I thought it was great. It was a nice twist I didn't see coming.
Yeah.
Which is hard to say for like most of these movies. You usually kind of see the twist coming from a mile away.
Oh yeah. That was like I remember going to see this movie like back in 2013, I guess, when it came out. And of course, I didn't know who the Mandarin was because I'm not a comics guy. I'm a movie guy. So when they throw that at you, I was like, oh, cool. And then turns out everybody hates that twist. It's like a big comics
Everyone
nerd.
hates it. Yeah.
I was
Of course, it all pays off in Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you get the real Mandarin and you also get the return of Trevor Slattery. Love it.
Yeah, you kind of got more of a from what I understand from comic book fans, you got in Shang-Chi, you got more of a modern day take on the Mandarin when he's more like a crime boss kind of deal.
Sure.
Yeah, kind of who he was, how he is now. I love the part when Stark fights Killian's goons, and he has that little like those little magnets inside of him, and like it's like he's like fights the goon with like parts of his Iron Man suit. I thought that was real fun. And
Yeah,
then-
all the combat scenes in this movie are pretty top notch, and
Oh yeah.
you know, we can get to we have classically shat upon the sort of final battles in this movie, but this movie
Yes.
delivers. Like,
Yes.
has a really fun final battle.
And this is where, like, in honesty, volume 2, phase 2 is like where Marvel really starts finding their footing. Even when they misstep in a movie, they get like 9 out of 10 steps right. Even if they miss like 1 or 2, they're like, we're almost there now.
Yeah, and I think this is the final action scene in this movie. I think it's the best post-Avengers action scene thus far.
Well, I mean,
know.
it's the only post-Avengers
The
action
Avengers.
scene thus far. This was the very next movie.
I meant out of the 3 movies that we're reviewing today.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely, because it's actually imaginative.
Hmm.
You've got a villain who doesn't have the same powers as the
Right.
hero, because that's a big thing in the MCU, is the
Yeah.
villain usually has the same power set.
Hmm.
No, this villain's a
Mhm.
little different, and so the battle's a little different, also because you have all these suits that have been built for various purposes. Like, they've been built for like building roads and farming
Right.
and all
Right.
this other stuff. Like, I actually watched a YouTube video where they broke down every suit in that movie
That's great.
and what its purpose was for. I was like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty
Right.
cool. He's finding a way to use all these things that he's made.
And did anybody notice that Jenna Ortega is in this movie?
What?
Where
Yeah,
is
she's like the
she?
president's daughter.
No way.
Really?
That
Oh,
was-
wow.
She didn't have. No, wait. She played the vice president's daughter or the president's daughter?
Whatever. I think it's the vice
Miguel-
president.
Miguel
Ferrer.
Ferreira's daughter. Oh wow, did not notice that.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
pretty cool.
Didn't notice. Nope.
Messed
Yeah,
my.
he blew up last year with Scream X, Studio 666, and Wednesday.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Also, there's a RoboCop reference near the end.
Oh, really?
Like Tony Stark definitely has the RoboCop like blade that comes out and he slices off Killian's hand.
Oh,
just
that
like
makes
the end
sense,
of RoboCop.
Miguel Ferreira was in RoboCop.
He was.
Yeah.
Miguel Ferreira is awesome. As soon as I saw him on screen, I was like, Miguel. It's great.
We gotta talk about the airplane scene. That seems pretty amazing.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun sequence.
It's like a Superman movie. Like, he's actually, saving people as opposed to just doing battle, which is
Just
cool.
shooting a bunch of.
I mean, obviously, like, Iron Man, like, it's all about like guns and this and that, but this is like very classic superhero movie stuff. This goes back to like the Richard Donner Superman, stuff like that, where he's just saving civilians from this situation, and he has to. And then you have that wonderful reveal at the end of the scene where he's not actually in the suit.
Right.
He's powering it remotely. Yeah.
Plants and payoffs. So many like great plants and payoffs in this movie. And I will say that about Shane Black is that he does those really well. He sets you up in the earlier in the movie just to pay it off later. It's good.
Uh-huh.
A lot of fun stuff.
Anyway, guys, if you got nothing else to say, do you want to go to favorite part, least favorite part?
Least favorite part. To me, the Magma Men feel a little out of place in an Iron Man universe somehow.
Yeah, these
Because we've spent so much time, and especially the previous 2 movies, where Iron Man and his villains are like all tactile and they're based off like technology. And this is we sort of jump out of that, so it always like throws me off when they're like, oh, now my arms can glow fire and I can blow up at any moment. That's like my least favorite part, which is not saying much. Like that's not that big a deal. I get over it real quickly. But my favorite part, and honestly, my favorite part is probably that middle sequence where he loses his suit, where he gets trapped in like Tennessee for a long while, even though the kid's a little annoying sometimes. But like him having to like work without his toys, and then building his own stuff, I love all that stuff.
All right, so Jackson, what's your favorite part, least favorite thing?
Favorite part, honestly, is the reveal of Trevor Slattery.
Oh God,
it's so funny. Ben Kingsley, he's one of those actors that's like, he has a reputation for being like a serious actor, But
Yeah.
in a lot of movies, he's used for comedy. He's a
Right.
very silly person, despite his he won an Oscar for playing Gandhi, but whatever. He's always in silly stuff. It's great. Least favorite part, I'm not like any particular part necessarily, but I feel like this is where the Marvel movies start to get a little bit long, or at least they start to feel long.
Yeah.
Like this one, I think is the first one to like be like 2 hours 15 minutes. I don't know. I don't
Outside of the
remember how long.
Avengers. Avengers was 2.5.
Right.
But
That's true.
this is the first like
That's true.
standalone one that was like well above 2
Yeah,
hours.
and this one, like it just stretches on a little bit long,
Mm.
but it's not like a major thing with me. I don't have anything that I specifically dislike in this movie. But
Mm.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to go with my favorite thing. I love Stark's relationship with Harley. I think that's really enduring. And I didn't even think about the whole that's a foreshadowing between with his relationship with Peter Parker.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't remember who pointed that out, but thanks for saying that because I did not think about that. Least favorite thing, I feel like the story or the tone is a bit uneven because I feel like the thing in Tennessee is very Iron Man. That seems like a natural progression. I like the stuff in Miami, but it feels more like that's like a same block movie, like Lethal Weapon or like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
yeah,
Oh, another thing I'm gonna mention is I like the whole thing with Pepper Potts wearing the Iron Man costume for like a second. I thought that was
yeah,
a thing. But
Sorry, that's another thing too. I guess really the main thing that I'm annoyed about is that Pepper Potts gets these Magma Man powers, and then they're just like they clear it up in a voiceover later. She's like, "Ah, we fixed it.
yeah.
She's fine now.
yeah.
Don't worry about it. Never think about this again."
I
It's
will
just one of those
say,
things that like we wrote ourselves in a corner and we'll get rid of it.
this movie is my mom's favorite Iron Man
Oh,
solo movie.
Oh,
Yes,
really?
okay.
That's interesting.
yeah, she liked this one a lot.
Yeah. But before we get to the Dark World, let's do rating. So where would you rate this movie at a 5, Eric?
This one is probably about a 3.5 for me.
Jackson?
Yeah, 3.5 sounds about right. 3.5 to 4,
Yeah.
depending on the day.
Surprise,
Yeah.
surprise, 3.5 for me.
Yeah. It's a perfectly middle of the road sequel to a really great movie, a pretty mediocre movie. So all around pretty
Yeah.
good.
So let's get to Thor: The Dark World. And the plot
Ugh.
synopsis, according to IMDb, would be when dark elves attempt to plummet the universe into darkness, Thor must embark on a perilous and personal journey that will reunite him with Dr. Jane
Jane Fonda?
Foster.
Foster. Jane Fonda's in this?
Barbarella. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
I mean, I'll watch this movie 100 times. It's like 60 Jane Fonda is in there.
Right.
But anyways, what are your quick overall thoughts about the Dark World before we get into the deep dive?
I will say I had very like hard feelings about this movie. I watched it, I think, probably shortly after it came out, and I was just like, ugh. Because they had like Marvel had like for me, like the other Thor movie wasn't great, like the Incredible Hulk wasn't great, and so like I was like, this Thor, they're gonna redeem it because Iron Man 3 was like riding back up off Iron Man 2. I was like, this is gonna be good, and I remember watching it and going like, oh, this is terrible. I hate this movie.
Mm.
And so I went in this movie thinking like, oh, this is gonna be bad. But I'm gonna be honest, it's pretty good. It's not as bad as I remember it being, especially the second half. Second half's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think this movie is unfairly maligned.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I always like to talk about the directors a little bit. Of course, the director of this movie is Alan Taylor, who's like a TV guy. He made a lot of episodes of Game of Thrones and The Sopranos. Like he's one of HBO's like go-to guys. It was originally supposed to be Patty Jenkins, who did Wonder Woman. And she exited the project over creative differences, like other people have done that we'll get to with Marvel movies. And so they kind of like, I don't know. I feel like this is kind of a scrapped together Thor sequel that they just
Yeah.
felt like they had to release. But at the same time, I love what they do with Loki in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
That
This
is
is where, yeah.
This is where Loki starts to really become more of a complex character.
Right.
And
Yes.
nobody gives this movie credit for that. But this is the movie where like Loki really starts to change. And that's an important part of the MCU going forward. So I feel like if nothing else, this movie does that pretty well.
No, and I like the part when Thor says to Loki, when you betray me, I will kill you. And it's not if you betray me, it's when you betray me.
When.
Yeah. When.
Motive right there.
He knows it. He knows it's coming.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's an empty threat because Thor would never kill Loki. Thor loves Loki.
Apparently Thanos didn't love Loki.
Oh, no. Thanos.
I love anybody.
Well, we'll get to that when we get to it. But as far as Thor goes, like I know Drew has seen this. Eric, have you seen like the video I made with my mom where we talked about?
No, I haven't.
I'll send it to you. It's on Facebook.
Please do. This sounds great.
It's like an hour-long video where me and my mom just talk about the entire Infinity Saga because it's the first time she'd ever watched any of those movies. And I tell the story in that where we were watching that movie. This was back 3 years ago during quarantine. I was staying with my parents at the time. And we got to the scene where Loki dies in Infinity War. And we had to stop the movie because my mom was crying too hard.
Oh no. What? That's like the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. We had to stop the movie because like this movie sets up and the subsequent movies follow through with, like, you know, you've made Loki into a very lovable character. He starts off as a straight up villain.
Yeah.
But this movie starts to turn, and she could not take it when Loki died. And she said the same thing. She said, like, you know, you've got these two brothers and one of them just wants to be king, except he's never going to be king. And the one who's supposed to be king doesn't want to be king. And there's all this tension between them.
It's very
but it's all coming from Loki's side. Loki's jealous, but Thor just loves Loki. And that is one of the best character dynamics in the entire MCU for me. Just Thor just loves his brother.
But that's a really interesting take. Like I said, it's very like kind of Shakespearean in a way. And we were saying that is destined for the throne, but he didn't want it. Loki wants to be in the throne, but he will never be there. That's
it's good stuff.
Yeah.
It's good storytelling.
I don't know about you guys, but didn't it seem like Odin was kind of a dick in this movie to Loki?
Oh, Odin's such a dick.
Yeah. And like they play it where like Anthony Hopkins basically ends all of his scenes by yelling. Like he starts out as like a whisper and he's like this, and then eventually he's like, because I am Odin, and then he leaves the room.
Yeah.
That's how almost every scene with him ends.
He basically told Loki your birthright was to die as a child, cast out on a frozen rock. I'm like, good God.
Yeah.
Your stepson you're talking about, dude.
And this is before his wife died. He's still a jerk. It'd make more sense after she died, but I don't. Yeah, there's just something like, oh.
In the next movie, he comes back and he's just like gives them an inspirational speech and then dies. So they never knew what to do with Odin as a character.
Yeah.
It's different movie to movie. Do y'all know about what Anthony Hopkins does with his scripts?
Oh yeah, I know you're talking.
No. He writes next to his lines in the scripts, depending on the line. Sometimes he writes the acronym NAR, meaning no acting required. He just relies on his sort of natural gravitas
technique,
to get him through the scene. Yeah.
Wow.
But even with Anthony Hopkins phoning it in, it's pretty awesome.
Oh yeah. There's a reason there's no acting required when you're Anthony Hopkins. You have a great look, you have a great voice, and you can just kind of say the lines. It doesn't matter.
He's a method actor.
Been doing this for 40 years.
Yeah.
Is he an method
Longer
actor?
at
I
this
haven't heard
point.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was. I thought he was more like classical.
No, he's not. No, he's not a method actor. If anybody's not a method actor, it's Anthony
really?
Hopkins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100% against it.
Tell me about the lambs, Charlize. Tell me about the lambs.
Yeah.
Actually ate a guy for that movie. That's how method he was.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
And then I love the part when Thor takes out the huge rock monster. Or no, right before he takes him out, and he says, "I accept your surrender." That's like a
Yeah.
low Thor line to say.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, well, he knows he's gonna beat him.
Sure.
He's like, "I'm the
Okay,
god."
which leads me to my next question about this movie. Am I the only one that thinks that as far as potential girlfriends go, I much prefer Sif over
Yes.
Jane Foster?
Yes.
What is wrong with Thor?
Yeah,
And he's known her longer. Like
Yeah. She's
he has
so
to go
much
out of
cooler.
yeah. She's gonna live longer. She doesn't have
Yeah.
to watch her die in his hands.
Well, I prefer
Like, it's-
Valkyrie because I think Tessa Thompson absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, sure. But Valkyrie doesn't swing that way. Valkyrie's into
No.
girls.
Oh yeah,
But
But
clearly
Sif
she's
obviously has a thing for Thor.
for Thor,
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he is just like, I don't want anything to do with that. And they
Yeah,
even hint at it
what
in
is
this movie.
wrong with you, man?
The heart wants what the heart wants.
yeah.
I
Exactly.
guess.
But this movie looked 1,000 billion times better than the first one. I feel like,
It does.
probably
Yeah,
because you
for
got
sure.
one of
It
the
is.
drone directors to come on board, so he knew how to capture like big, epic, like fantasy worlds.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it did
Well,
like-
he's not doing the Dutch angle thing every 2 seconds either.
What was Kenneth Branagh thinking? I was thinking
I
about that the
don't
earlier
know.
day. I have a question before we move too far deep into this. How does Jane find the ether? Like, is it just because she just happens upon it? Is that am I missing something?
No, because Darcy finds out about it, and
But it's all
they go.
happenstance, though, right?
It is kind of happenstance, yeah.
Okay.
Darcy gets readings on Jane's like device,
Yeah.
but Jane's out on a date with a dude from the IT crowd,
Right.
and then comes and tells Jane about it, and they go find it together. But yeah, it's just like readings on a machine.
Just
Yeah.
making sure I didn't
Which
miss anything.
It's
Like,
a really
bigger
fun
thematically.
sequence though when they go in there and like that big truck is just like sort of
Oh, yeah.
floating in the air, and the kid can kind of spin it around with just his finger or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's the closest we get to
part.
like. It's the closest we get to kind of awe in these Thor movies. For the most part.
Yeah,
Of
true.
like something magical happening outside of the realm of
Mhm.
possibility.
Yeah, that's what this movie does well. Like, I know people are gonna tune into this thinking we're gonna just, shit
Trash the
all
whole
over
thing. Yeah.
Thor: The
Yeah.
Dark World, but this movie's got some stuff going for it.
Again, in retrospective, after watching Land of Thunder, this movie's like might as well be The Godfather.
Oh, I don't know if I go that far, but
Yeah.
I'm saying
We'll get to that.
In
We'll get to that.
perspective, it's about you're not thinking three-dimensionally, Monty.
I will say the one thing this movie has going against it is just a completely wet blanket of a villain for the most
Oh,
part.
God.
Yeah, this is like more
Malekith.
villain.
Malekith is
Hey.
just such a. He's just
And it's
there,
one of
just
those. It's one of those things we've talked about. Well, like they get a villain who's really flat on the page, but they cast a great actor.
Yeah.
And here they had a flat villain and they cast a great actor, and then somehow it still failed. Like
Flat is-
Christopher Eccleston is a really fun actor. He played the Doctor, like
He was in that. Oh, sorry.
no, I don't really have much else to say. It's just I can't believe that they managed to get a charismatic actor like Christopher Eccleston
Right.
and just ruin him.
Yeah.
Just botched all of it. Like his motivation doesn't make a lot of sense to begin
Yeah,
with.
it's just like I want the world to be darkness.
And
the
I'm like,
other
what does
thing
that
is-
mean?
Yeah.
They
get
have
out
him
now.
speak in like the Elvish language the whole movie,
Yeah.
except for a couple scenes where he doesn't. It's just like, just, why? Why are you doing that? You're just alienating the villain from the audience one more
Yeah.
level by having him speak some made up language. Just let him speak English. It's fine.
Yeah.
Thor speaks English. He's not from Earth.
What's the name of Thor's mother in this movie? Is it
Frigga.
Yeah, Frigga. Yeah, her death is really sad in this.
Yeah.
The only time that somebody dies and actually stays dead in this series.
Yeah, it's true.
It's
Like after they
rare.
killed Loki, yeah. Once they killed
But
Loki
even they
in
find a
this
way to
one too,
bring her
yeah.
back in Endgame because of time
That's true
travel.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I love the Captain America cameo. I think that's a lot of fun.
Yes.
That is a
So
lot of
much
fun.
fun.
Well,
That's why, yeah, the second half of this movie, kind of takes off. Like once they free Loki, like Zeta's movie's pretty great by comparison.
Well, I didn't like that whole scene where like Loki is shape shifting him and Thor, and then he turns
Sure.
Thor into Lady Sif. And he
Mhm.
says, brother, you
Mhm.
look like Rabizine.
Yeah.
I mean, which is funny because like it's implied in the Loki series that he may be bisexual.
Oh, 100%.
Oh,
He
he's
swings
for
both
sure
ways.
bisexual.
Yeah. Just
He is
listen to the man for a minute.
omnisexual, I'm guessing. Yeah.
He would do anything with everything. He would do
Yeah.
that
He's like
crocodile.
Deadpool
Yep.
in that way.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, like that part when like the female Loki is like, you're just trying to find your queen. And then Loki said, or king. And I'm like, oh, right on, Loki.
For sure.
Don't be ashamed. I heard that there are a lot of shoe jokes in this movie.
Oh
There's a lot
yeah.
of what?
It's a lot of Darcy asking people to give them their shoes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Give me your
Dr.
shoes.
Selvig,
Yeah.
like the multiverse or whatever nerdy science.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It pays off. And then Stan Lee's like, give me back my shoe.
I need my orthopedic shoes so my feet don't hurt
Poor Stanley.
when I have disco night with Debbie.
The second half's my favorite half of the movie. It still got problems though. I say that like there's still like the big baddie fat showdown at the end. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. But
I love the part
also
when,
like there's a lot of mumbo jumbo stuff that they don't explain how it works. Like those sticks that Selvig has. He's just like transport energy, and I'm like, and we just gotta go like, okay, cool.
yeah, I
Sorry,
love
go
the
ahead.
part when I think it's like right before it's like the action scene before the final action scene when they're like in that
Sure.
other realm like with all the red
Mhm.
and Thor like throws his hammer at that creature and like the creature just bit slaps it out of the way.
Mhm.
That was pretty funny. I'm only so I guess this character's worthy if he can do that to Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's a berserker, man. Who knows what they're capable of? I don't know nothing about these dark elf berserkers.
And I love how Dr. Selvig is happy about Loki's death. And I'm like, well, I mean, if you were mind controlled by the Norse god Mixif, like you would think the same thing too.
Yeah.
Sure. He's not really dead too. Like we find that out like
No.
4 scenes later.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought him in safe shifting back from safe shifting from Odin to Loki when he's on the throne, that was a very like comic booky kind of moment right there. Like
Sure.
that's something you can like totally see in the comics.
Oh sure. And
Mhm.
they plant that early on too, whenever they're back on the dark world and like you pan over to that guard and you kind of see like a little green around him, just a hair, and then it's just implying that Loki shapeshifts in this
Right.
guard.
And it's also the Game of Thrones.
It's nice payoff later.
There's a lot of like I know like a lot of promotional stuff in Game of Thrones. There's like, people sitting like the that chair throne thing. I don't know. I don't
Sure.
watch Thrones.
The Iron Throne, yeah.
Yeah.
And well, the weird thing is they make a big deal about the throne being destroyed earlier in the movie. And then
Yeah.
it's
What's
just like
that
back to
about?
normal. They're like, the throne is destroyed, the throne is destroyed. And then they're like, now it's back to normal. It's just like nothing
Well,
happened.
I mean, in the first Thor, like the Bifrost gets destroyed.
Yeah.
And then in this movie, it's just back.
It's just
You know,
back.
no big deal. So
Yeah.
I feel
whatever.
like the Bifrost is like the most like 60s thing in like the Thor iconography.
The Rainbow Bridge?
Maybe, but I mean, I think that's from actual Norse mythology.
Yeah.
Right, but like a lot of the pictures that I've seen or the panels from like the comic book of that era. Like it's like very comic booky.
Oh, it probably looks for sure like just a rainbow bridge. Like it's like
Yeah.
8-color rainbow bridge. It doesn't look like
Mhm.
as cool probably as this one.
Yeah, I think a lot of the characters that came out in the 60s and 70s are very much a product of like the hippie counterculture kind of
Sure.
yeah. Especially Doctor Strange. Like you cannot tell
Oh
me
yeah,
that like
Oh, that's psychedelic. Yeah.
yeah, like you can't
100%.
tell me whoever did the artwork for the Doctor Strange comics, you can't tell me that they never dropped acid like ever. 'Cause there's some
Mm.
pretty trippy stuff in those books.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
Jack Kirby is known for being a pretty trippy guy. Like, I don't know if he ever did acid or anything, but like as a writer and illustrator, he's known for
Mm,
being trippy. So,
yeah. But anyways, if you guys don't have anything else to say, let's get to favorite part, least favorite part.
My least favorite part, besides all the things we've already complained about with Thor: Dark World, is Loki is going to kill the Berserker, and
Mm.
he grabs the grenade and throws it, and his final line to him is "See you in hell, monster." And I just roll my eyes at that. It's such a lame line from such like a really in this movie like we were talking about a complex character. And I'm just like, oh, they couldn't come up with anything better.
Right.
So that's my worst part. My favorite part is really dynamic between Thor and Loki. Like once they bust them out, like all the stuff with them, I love all that stuff. I'd watch that all day.
so least favorite part, it's Malekith. Like,
Yeah.
what a
Yeah.
nothing villain. Like, you can't say it enough. It's just he's nothing. He's
Mm.
nothing. Favorite part though, and this builds on what Eric was saying, like the whole Loki stuff, the scene where Loki's in his cell and Thor comes to see him, and then like Loki lets his
Mm.
glamour down
Mm.
and it shows him and he's just a wreck, sitting against the wall, barefoot, his whole room's destroyed because he's so sad about Frigga.
Mm.
Because Frigga was kind to him, and I just love seeing like Loki in that kind of vulnerable state.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree. And
Yeah.
it's like he says he's not. He says Loki says she's not my mom. He says that, but
no,
his actions clearly mean something different in that
yeah,
moment.
My least favorite part, like you said, is Malekith. It's a boring
Yeah.
villain. Favorite part would be the escape from Asgard scene. I thought that was a lot of fun.
okay,
Yeah.
I was
It's
going to
fun.
say what you said, Eric, the whole relationship with him and Loki, or
Mm-hmm.
Thor and Loki, but like I figured somebody was going to say that, so I didn't want to
Yeah. Right.
steal that from you. And then rating. How would you rate this movie?
I'd say it's solid, probably 2 stars, 2.5 maybe.
I go 2.5 to 3.
Okay.
It actually gets a little better every time you watch it.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's like a
This is
shoe
one of
that
those that,
stinks. It's like a shoe that stinks and you smell it and you're like, oh, it's terrible. And you keep going back to it. That smells good now. You know?
yeah,
Yeah, I'd probably say a 3. I mean, like I said, in retrospective, it's really not that bad. It's kind of a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Love and Thunder. Next and last movie that we're gonna talk about today is Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and the plot synopsis, according to IMDb, is as Steve Rogers struggles to embrace his role in the modern world, he teams up with fellow Avenger and SEAL agent Black Widow to battle a new threat from history, an assassin known as the Winter Soldier.
Oh.
Yeah. What is your guys' quick thoughts about the Winter Soldier?
I've been keeping up with Marvel movies for a while up to this point, and so this was the first one. I would always ask someone if someone saw the movie before me, I would ask them how it was. And before now, all people's responses were normally like, "Pretty good for a Marvel movie." It's pretty good for a Marvel movie. This was the first time anyone had ever said it's a pretty good movie, just
Yeah.
outright. And
yeah.
I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll give it a go. And I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah,
This may be my favorite Marvel movie. I don't know.
there's parts of this movie that didn't feel like a superhero movie, like really at all. Like it's
Yeah,
kind of Jason Bourne meets like a '70s conspiracy thriller, and
yeah.
even the Russos even said that like their main experience was 3 days of the
Yeah, the
Condor.
Condor. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Russo brothers, they're coming off of like comedy too. So like I heard about this movie early on. I was like, it can't be good. These guys who made like Community and like Arrested
And Arrested
Development, they're like,
Development, yeah.
yeah, I was like this. It's not gonna be good.
Mhm.
I was wrong. I'll eat those words.
You're horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is the movie that I feel like shapes the MCU going forward, at least up through the end of the Infinity Saga, because you have the Russo brothers directing, and you have what is it, Marcus and McFeely
Mhm.
as the screenwriters, and these are the guys that go on to make. They didn't make Ultron, obviously, because Joss Whedon
Right.
was still under contract, but they went on to make like the subsequent Captain America movies and the Avengers movies.
Right.
So this movie kind of sets the tone. Okay, hot take.
Okay.
I think this movie's good, but it's not the best one.
You think it's not as good as Civil War?
No, I think it's better than Civil War, but
Okay.
I disagree.
I know you do. I think Civil War's a mess. We'll get to that later. But this one,
I agree.
I don't think it's as good as the first Captain America either.
I don't know. I would make the argument it at least has a stronger second half than the first Captain America.
Maybe, but I don't know. Like, this is one of those where when it came out, I was definitely in that camp of people that was like, oh, this is the best thing that they've ever done. Retrospect, I feel like this is the movie that, like, they're trying a little too hard to be grounded and realistic when it's
Sure.
the MCU.
Mhm.
And of course, later that year, they released Guardians of the Galaxy, which is just wackadoodle. But I don't know.
Well, that's
this represents the side of the MCU that I tend to like the least, which is the sort of grounded, realistic side.
Yeah. Well, that's what I love about the MCU because you get different kind of things. You get kind of like your monster movie with the Hulk, kind of like a robot kind of movie or science kind of movie with Iron Man, fantasy movie with Thor. You get your spy X-Men Jason Bourne movie with Captain America, Winter Soldier, Civil War.
Yeah.
That's right, and I thought it was definitely a breath of fresh air.
Sure, at the time, sure, yeah.
Yeah. It does feel, I agree with you, it does feel really calculated. Every scene goes on for the exact amount of time that it needs to in order for them to say like, oh, this guy helps veterans. Let's show two veterans say something. Now we're on to the next scene. Like, it's very calculated, and that's kind of how the MCU moves forward in some ways.
Yeah.
That it is always, it hits these high, it never digs any deeper than the surface for the most part.
Right.
But sometimes it doesn't have to.
Can I just say
But
quick?
Sure.
On your left.
Right.
I love that whole thing. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. On your left.
It's a good opening too.
It's a good opening that pays off several movies later.
Well, in this movie,
pays off at the end of this movie, and then they use it again, like many movies later. Yeah,
this movie came out my senior year of high school, and I remember, so like I had like maybe like another month left of high school, and I remember in PE class, I did that on the left thing to my classmates. We laughed at the beginning of PE. So I thought that was a lot.
I would be the one getting passed. So
yeah, same.
I was just passing. I thought that was a fun thing to do because I'm not that bad. I'm not alphabetically inclined.
Right.
And I just love Cat's relationship with Sam Olsen. I think that's a lot of fun.
No, yeah, and I would say I enjoy. I think to kind of counter what Jackson's saying a little bit, I liked that this movie sort of resets things and regrounds stuff. Especially since we went to space at the end of the Avengers, basically, basically invited aliens in from the outer world. So this is almost like a reset to where MCU is going again. So I enjoy it as sort of like taking it back to bare roots, and now we can rebuild and go wherever we want to.
Right, and I love Cap's notebook when Sam tells him you listen to the Trouble Man soundtrack.
First off, Trouble Man soundtrack is really good, and you should listen to it if you haven't.
Yeah, it's a good song, and then they call back to it at the end, which is awesome. Which kind of fits with the whole, this is supposed to be like kind of like an ode to like 70s conspiracy thrillers. Yeah, it kind of fits. I would say that song at the
Oh
end.
yeah, yeah,
I love the opening rescue scene on the boat. I thought that was really cool. You really got to see
Yeah.
Cap and his full abilities and that
Uh-huh.
athleticism because like he's
sure.
like jumping around and like doing like not spins but like somersaults and like flips and all that stuff.
Right,
And
and it's
then he finds MMA fighter George St. Pierre at the end.
mhm.
Thought that was a lot of fun. And he says, you're more than just sealed. And he says, let's see, and he takes off his helmet, which I like Cap but more without the helmet.
Oh.
And he puts the seal back on his back.
No, I mean it's I love all the stuff on the boat. It's really nice to see Cap fighting in a modern scenario. 'Cause we saw him fighting in the original Captain America, and it's
right.
very much gunplay at that point, and we're kind of like in behind lines, sort of gunfare, and then like all the stuff in Avengers is sort of like out there outlandish, like CGI, like fighting aliens sort of thing. So it's nice to
Mhm.
see like hand to hand combat
Yeah,
again,
it's more
which is where
tactile.
he kind of
More
specialized.
stealthy.
Yeah,
I love Fury's speech about his grandfather and how he started walking to work with a gun because the world got a lot more dangerous, and that kind of gets into
yeah,
the theme
Yeah.
of like Cap being a man out of time. Um, People are kind of crappy right now because we get to think about Cap grew up or was around during a time where going off to war was an honorable thing, and even if you did
Mhm.
go overseas, like just like spending your hard-earned money on war bonds to put bullets and like build tanks and all that stuff was also a good thing. You don't really see
Uh-huh.
that anymore.
yeah.
No.
We'll say that about
Most of
this
it's
movie is
easy.
that it hit almost too close to home sometimes,
Mhm.
where it kind of doesn't become fun anymore. Like you could say the original Captain America is removed enough from like nowadays. Like some
Right.
of the stuff they're talking about in this movie is like, oh, some of that's really happening, and some of it could be happening. So it's just like, is this fun? Are we having a good time?
Well, it's like what Cap says in that one scene. He's like, "This isn't freedom. This is fear."
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
And I feel
pointing
like,
the gun to everybody in the world and saying is justice or freedom or whatever it is, or
yeah,
protection. Yeah,
yeah.
and bouncing off of that, basically we find out that Shield is updating their tech to basically punish crimes before they happen. So kind of like a
Yeah.
minority report kind of thing.
Minority Report. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And I love the line when Fury goes, "Shield takes the world as it is, not as we like it to be."
Yeah.
It's a very interesting line.
He's I will say that about Nick Fury. He's at least trying to be a realist. He's
Mhm.
highly manipulative at every point to where
Oh
nobody can
yeah.
trust him.
Mhm.
Like he basically kills himself in this movie and then just like shows back up later and he's like, I'm not dead. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
I kind of like that dynamic a bit. In
He
this movie,
also lies to him in the Avengers. He throws those cards down. It's like Coulson had these in his pocket.
right?
He died for your beliefs. And then like he's just straight up lying to people to get his
I
web
mean,
series.
he's a super spy.
Yeah.
Like that's his whole, stock and trade is lies and manipulation.
Mm.
That's just what he does.
Yep. Ever
You
seen any
can't
Yeah,
James
that's
Bond
expect a
movie?
spy to not act like a spy.
Yeah, exactly.
right. But like, why would any of these people trust him after a while? Like after he lied to him at least, once or twice,
Mm.
3 times, 4, 5,
Yeah, but he's
6.
never given them a reason
Mm.
not to trust him. Like he's never betrayed like Cap or Black Widow or any of those people.
I guess so.
Right, and I
Not to their
didn't
knowledge, at
even,
least. Not to their knowledge, at least.
and I
I
didn't even.
mean, I haven't seen him do it yet.
We straight up lied to him about the cards, at least. He was at
Okay,
least being
yeah, he
manipulative,
lies. He's being manipulative, but he's not
throwing them in
betraying them.
danger. No, no,
No.
no.
Well, he throws them in danger. That's their job.
Obviously, countlessly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
but they know that.
I didn't even notice this until I watched it for this was Alexander Pierce, Robert Redford's character, basically tells Captain America that Fury has done some pretty shady stuff in the past. I never
Mhm.
recognized. I never noticed that
Huh.
conversation. like what Pierce was actually saying to Cap in that scene.
Sure. No, I mean, I think he's saying in that we all have our hands dirty. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah, but especially Pierce. I
Right.
mean,
He's trying to manipulate Cap too. So
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like that one episode of The Mandalorian where Bill Bird's character basically tells Mando that everybody has a line that they don't cross until things get messy.
Sure.
hmm
Yeah. I love how Peggy Carter is a mentor for Cap. And he even said he even says to her, "For as long as I can remember, I just wanted to do what was right. I guess I'm not quite sure what that is anymore."
Yeah. I do love that scene with Peggy until they reveal that she has Alzheimer's. And then it's like too much. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it gets a little weird at the end.
and you're like, it could have just been a nice, simple scene where he goes to visit an old friend.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just gets a little weird. And then they just like cut the scene just like that. And you're like,
Yeah,
and they never go back. They never go back to her.
and I really love the museum scene where he's looking at the exhibit of like Captain America and the Howling Commandos, and you have like Lieutenant Dan as like the narrator, which is awesome. I mean, who else do
Was
you
that
want
Gary
to
Sinise?
America?
Is that Gary Sinise?
Yeah,
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
I
I
didn't know
knew
that.
that voice from somewhere, but I couldn't
Oh.
place
like
it.
I said,
But
who
yeah,
else would
definitely him.
Who else would you want to narrate a Captain America exhibit?
Right.
And the guy who didn't get to go on Apollo 13. Yeah,
Oh,
obviously.
too.
Yeah. I love Gary Sinise.
And then I love the kid in the Captain America shirt that looks over at Captain America, and he's like kind of suspicious, like, is that the guy? And then Captain America like pulls his fingers up to his lips to kind of assist him, like kind of like a playful kind of thing. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that scene at the end, the first Captain America, where it's a kid who has the capsule made out of the trash can.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like he's a hero. To the
Mm-hmm.
I think the cap shield carries more weight than the kid this time around, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Like the trash can cap shield.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The elevator fight is one of those scenes where we can't talk about this movie. I'll talk about Cap.
Yeah.
That seems pretty awesome.
Elevators, that's great.
It's incredible. Like just the fact that they pull off a full action sequence in a very confined space.
Well, I just like how it's like how they slowly just pile people in there.
Yeah.
And this is like right after like Cap finds out like the seedy side of Nick Fury.
Yeah.
He's already pretty suspicious at this point, and then he's like, "There's one thing. Does anyone want to get out?" And he just starts whacking people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Then,
He's ready for it.
Grillo had like a little moment because he had like those electric sticks. Like he beats him.
Yeah.
Like it's like that overhead shot, and then like Cap like kicks the shield up to him. That's pretty dope.
I did have a thought this time. Like we're led to believe as the audience that Cap is in danger there. But what if he wasn't and he just starts beating the shit out of all these people for no reason? And like, stop, Cap, please. And he's just wailing on all of them. And then I started laughing and I couldn't watch the scene.
We don't ever think of Captain America as being like a really smart character, but this is the movie that establishes that like he's actually really smart. Like he's observant.
Intuitive,
Yeah. He can see the breaks of what's going on. And I don't think he gets enough credit for that.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks of him as like sort of a blunt force.
The big dumb guy, yeah.
Yeah, but he's not. No, that's Thor.
That's a little too much. I know. Yeah, that's too much.
That's the way Thor is.
Yeah.
But and he's not as smart as Tony. He's somewhere in the middle there.
But what I think is interesting is it seems like that Chris Evans, the person, from different interviews I've seen him in, and how he interacts with people, it seems like he had the natural Captain America Steve Rogers personality. He's a good person. He's awesome with fans. He even helped Regina King up to the Oscar stage, that one Oscar when he won. Which I thought was really nice. But then you see him in a movie like Knives Out.
Oh boy,
in that movie. So like he's actually a really talented actor.
Yeah, no, I think he's great. I think he got a lot of like crap roles early on in his career.
Yeah.
And things really, honestly, things really kind of took off for him after the MCU got going, for
Yeah.
the most part.
I still, when I see Chris Evans, I
Well, don't say it.
can't often forget his role in Not Another Teen Movie,
Oh yeah.
where he's like the douchebag friend, but he has
Oh.
like lines like, Janie is hot.
He's
I
the
love
perfect
that
person to
show.
deliver those.
Speaking of that, this morning I was getting ready for work, and you literally texted me, Jackson. My God, Sharon Carter is hot.
Oh, she is. She's so
Yeah.
hot. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we don't find out that she's related to Peggy until Civil War.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess that
forgot about that.
reveal isn't until then. Yeah.
I knew there was like another connection with her, and I couldn't remember what it was when I was watching this one.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that kind of takes it on like a little bit of a funny scene. He's like, "Good God, the woman I could have married, like her niece, I kind of have the hots for."
That's good blood. That's good blood. That's good genetics right there.
I love the mall chase scene. I thought that's a lot of fun when they go into the Apple store and like they disguise themselves as like like a couple about to get married, and they're saying, "Oh, we're looking for like honeymoon destination," and the guy's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, where do you think about going? New Jersey, because that's where they're going to find the other thing that they're looking for."
I like the stuff with them in the Apple store, but all the rest of the stuff I feel like I've seen in other movies, other better movies sometimes. Of just like people on the run and like kiss me. People don't like me, public affection and stuff like that. I was like, I've seen this in other movies.
Yeah, that led to like a really fun dialogue scene in the car. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, like I feel like they give Natasha a lot to do in this movie.
Yeah.
That they haven't really in other movies before,
Well,
which is nice.
I feel like here's the thing: in Iron Man 2, she was just produced to like the hot redhead. I think
Nothing, yeah.
Avengers, like that's when she start to become an interesting character, and then she's
Sure.
an interesting character in this movie.
Yeah, and then they didn't give her her own movie for 7 more years.
We also find out that Hydra had been hiding in seals for decades. And we use this character, the Winter Soldier, aka Bucky Barnes, to create terrorist attacks to make the world afraid and give force protection.
I do love the scene. You're talking about the scene in the bunker, correct?
Yeah, I'm gonna get what's his face back? Armin
Zillow, yeah. So I do love how that scene is set up. That he lived on in this computer brain and this essentially like Mac OS, like way Apple II, sort of like old tech. He's living on that. But it's just such a weird exposition dump of a scene. And I know he's like playing it up as like, I'm trying to distract you so that we can kill you. But at the same time, it's just like he's just telling like the whole plan. For anybody who hasn't been paying attention before now, he's just like, here's what we've been doing. Here's what we're gonna do.
So, and this is like
villain's gonna monologue. That's the way it works.
Villain's got a monologue. You're right.
I love the part when Bucky and Cap are fighting in the end, and Cap goes, "You're my friend," and then Bucky goes, "You're my mission." That's very that's a very poignant kind of scene.
The whole thing with Bucky is very poignant because you go back to the first movie and Bucky is Steve's protector,
right?
In that, and in this movie he's been brainwashed out of that, but Bucky was the guy that Steve looked up to,
right?
Sure.
And now Steve has to fight him, and it's very poignant.
Yeah,
right. And the only reason this movie works is because of the first Captain America. Like this couldn't be a standalone movie. It doesn't carry the same emotional weight at that point.
Yeah, because you have to have that setup of Bucky being this like really good guy. He could have been Captain America.
Under
if the Super Soldier program had found him, he would have been a perfect candidate because he was like a really genuinely good guy and a good soldier. But he got shipped off to the wrong, assignment.
Right. And I love the Winter Soldier in this movie. Like he was pretty much like the T-1000 from like Terminator.
Yeah.
He cannot be stopped. And I think Alexander Pierce is a pretty underrated villain too.
They
The
do start the trend in this movie, I think, of like if your villain starts kind of making too much sense, they're just going to kill an innocent person midway through the movie just to take away any doubt that they're a bad person,
Right.
which they do with him.
Yeah, and that's what I like about these Marvel movies is that yeah, they're not necessarily like the best movies in the world. They're not on the level of like Godfather, or Citizen King or whatever, Citizen King or whatever. But like they get like old school actors like Anthony Hopkins and Robert Redford and the
Mhm.
Self Pfeiffer, Michael Douglas, and they bring a lot of weight and gravitas. Like they take these roles seriously.
Sure, 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 sure. Add some legitimacy to what under like lesser hands would be
Mm.
silly comic like children's schlock. You know what I mean? Like
And it's the perfect
Mhm.
uh,
movie for
Roger
Redford.
Corman made a Fantastic Four movie in the '80s, and it's
Mm.
terrible. It's
Yeah.
hot trash.
Well, and this is the perfect role for Robert Redford because he's playing like kind of like a political character. And I know he's
Sure.
pretty big in that sort of world when he's not
Well,
And it
acting.
really
yeah,
just
but
like harkens back to
you brought up 3 Days of the Condor earlier. He's
yeah,
the hero of that
Right.
movie.
yeah,
Yeah, I haven't seen
So
that. I
this
need
is
to watch it.
like take the hero from the '70s thrillers and put
yeah.
him in the villain role here. Yeah, it's they knew what they were doing.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I remember my grandma, who's a big Robert Redford fan, who saw this movie the day before I did, really
Hmm.
gravitated to that aspect
Hmm.
of this
Hmm.
movie. And actually when we went to go see Endgame together, so he kind of perked up a little bit when Redford stood backed up.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
oh yeah, that's the guy from Winter Soldier. And I gotta say, if you knew me for even a little bit, you know one of my favorite movies of all time, top 5 or top 10 is Pulp Fiction. Love the
yeah.
Pulp Fiction quote on Fury's tombstone. The Ezekiel whatever it is.
Oh.
Is that
It's a nice little Easter egg joke.
yeah,
Nice
well,
little Easter egg.
cool because
It's not even a real Bible passage.
yeah,
No.
yeah. Well, no, that's not the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's the gospel of Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no,
Um.
what I like, what was interesting was Tarantino doing an interview, and somebody asked him about that reference, and he was like, "Well, that was cool because I grew up watching or reading comics when I was a kid, and even like
Sure.
reading Stan's soapbox was the first time I was ever like aware of like relevant issues in the world."
Yeah.
Hmm.
Right.
And I even made reference to Marvel Comics in my movie. Then now to see it reversed, to see one of my movies referenced in a Marvel.
Yeah.
That's when you know you finally made it. Now you're big time. Also, too, question: are they keeping Bucky in an old bank vault? Is that where they keep him at whenever he's like Winter Soldier?
Yeah.
I just noticed that this time watching it, and I was like, is he in a bank vault?
Mm.
It's what it looks like, if no
Yeah,
one
and
else
that's a
noticed.
really. I think the whole like Becky being tortured and being like mind control. I think that's the darkest stuff in the MCU. Honestly,
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's up there.
yeah,
And
like
he
that's some
uh
like
he
MK
doesn't really get
mind control
sure.
kind of stuff going
And
on.
he doesn't really even get redemption for like a while. Like after Civil War, like it don't even really to bring him back into the fold until like of the final Avengers movie, right? Is that crazy? Like
I mean,
'cause
he
he's
starts to get
ostracized.
it at the end of Civil War, and then he's got a like end credit scene from Black Panther.
That's right.
But then,
Yeah. He's got a long road to go. Bucky does.
But if you guys don't have anything else you want to say about Captain America: The Winter Soldier, let's get to favorite part, least favorite part.
There's a lot of great stuff in this one, so it's hard to like really pick out something that's kind of bad.
Mm.
Um, I think some of the middle drags in this one quite a bit, like stuff like them on the run, just seen in other movies. I think the exposition dump in the bunker is a little ham-fisted, but I don't really have anything I just straight out like hate about this movie. This is one of my favorite ones, and I will say like some of my favorite stuff is really just like regrounding the series after a while. There's some silly stuff in it though, still. Like it's not immune from being just like completely completely un, un,
Mm.
un unsilly at times, but like I don't know. I think it works. I think it works really well. It feels very calculated, but I don't mind it. And especially where we're going with like Civil War, I think, which is kind of a mess. I think this is probably the last time I really liked a Captain America movie.
Yeah, I think my favorite element of this movie is what we've already brought up, like the whole dynamic with Bucky. Like we referenced the scene where Steve says, "You're my friend," and Bucky says, "You're my mission." And of course, that sequence ends with Bucky pulling Steve out of the river and saving his life.
Mhm.
Because there's still that little part of Bucky that does know who he is.
Right.
And yeah, I just love Bucky as a character, and I love him being reintroduced to the series in this way.
Least favorite part.
I mean, yeah, it's the same as what Eric was saying. Like, it just drags in some spots.
I'm gonna go. My favorite part would be how the Russo brothers or the filmmakers were able to make the Winter Soldier intimidating.
Yeah.
Least favorite part would probably be there's just too many quick cuts in some of the action scenes. It's not too bad. But I mean, if it had to find something negative about this movie, it'd probably be that. So let's do rating, and we'll wrap this video up.
I'm a solid 4. This is a solid 4 from me.
Okay.
It's really good.
Yeah,
Solid movie. Best early on one. Best phase 2 in my opinion. As of right now, at least.
Yeah.
I'd go like 3.5, 4. Yeah, I mean, I know I talked a little bit of crap on it at the beginning of this because it hasn't aged as well as some of the other ones for me, but I'd still think it's a solid movie. So yeah, 3.5, 4.
Right. This is like the second time I'm doing this in this series thus far. It gets a perfect score for me, 5 out of 5.
Oh wow,
that's bold.
Yeah, so because like I just think.
Wait, what was the other one? What was the other one you gave
Iron
5
Man.
stars? Oh, okay.
I think the reason why I gave it a 5 out of 5 was I like the emotional aspect of it. I love the whole thing with Cap and Bucky. Plus, even though I did some of the editing, the action weren't like absolutely great. I do like a lot of the action in this movie. Before we wrap this video up, do you have any last minute thoughts about any of these movies that we talked about, or any like future movies that you just want to, or anything you just want to say before I wrap the video up?
I would say phase 2 pretty okay compared to phase 1 so far. Like I think phase 1 is half and half for me. Like I think there's like half of them that are really pretty good, and half of them they're kind of trash. They're terrible. And so far this one, like most of them, even the middle of the road one, like Thor, there's still some parts of them kind of like okay, and there's not parts of like an Incredible Hulk that I'm like, oh man, that one scene was great though. So far off to a great start with phase 2. I'm excited to see the second half.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, same. I mean, phase two is definitely a step up. Still no phase 3. Oh, I can't wait to talk about phase 3.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, I just like I feel like you got a hint of greatness with Winter Soldier. I mean, I think Iron Man 3 is really good. I think the tone is kind of a little weird.
Yeah.
Thor, Dark World, okay, mediocre. But like, I just think Winter Soldier is amazing. Anyways, guys, that is the end of this episode of MCU Lookback. If you like this episode and you want to see more incredible content, make sure you smash that subscribe button. Take a web swing over to my Facebook and Twitter account at Horror Sci-Fi Beyond. Also, don't forget to leave an amazing comment in the comment section and give this video or this episode a Thanos thumb-sized thumbs up. And one last thing before I go, you'll never see me coming. And Excelsior! I'm not dead.